I hope when people see our work in the fish markets that they feel a sense of the love that went into it. We really poured our hearts and souls into this one, as we do with all of our projects, but this one was very special to us.
When you think about the space, the design, the aesthetic, its location, what it stands for, it's definitely one of the new places that you need to visit.
My name is Matt Toomer. I'm the owner and director of Concreative, and today we're at the Sydney Fish Markets.
I'm Paul Papadopoulos from DS17, founder, creative director of the beautiful Boatshed project at the Sydney Fish Markets.
Seafood has always been a huge part of the Australian culture. The fish markets started in the 60s, the old ones, and coming into 2020s, it was time for a rebrand and make it a whole lot more upmarket. We were engaged to do the counters for 2 restaurants, the Boatshed Fish Market Cafe, and then they ended up asking us to do the counter for the 3rd venue called Squid Inc. The design intent for the Fish Market Cafe was always to be a very industrial look to all of the vertical surfaces. All the crumbly looking bony concrete was very intentional. The horizontal surfaces or work surfaces would obviously need to be very smooth, very well finished to maintain a food safe and a hygienic surface. So the Squid Inc. design was completely different from the other 2. We had to create a facade to the counter, and we came up with a way to do it where we made essentially a basin mould. We were making the curve independently from all the other things that needed making, and we coated the mould in the same way that we'd done the other one, so it was going to give us exactly the same finish.
The Boatshed project came about as a new Sydney benchmark. The brief from the client was quite simple. They wanted to create a beautiful, esteemed restaurant and cafe offering that overlooked the water. And from our understanding when we first viewed the site, they probably did have one of the best sites in the Sydney fish markets that ultimately we could work with, which was overseeing the beautiful Anzac Bridge and on the water. So it did create a beautiful, esteemed environment, a great backdrop for us to create something special within the venue. We wanted to come up with an overall master plan and aesthetic, understanding that we wanted to create something custom out of concrete. And then we ultimately looked for one of the best bespoke artisans in the industry. So we started to work with Matt and his team around the design, the aesthetic, the colour and the context. And from there we started to develop different ideas in terms of mediums, context, rawness, and the actual colours and swatches that we wanted to bring through in the concrete textures.
There was a custom terrazzo sample that we had to match, which took us quite a few attempts to get the aggregate content and colours all in the right place. There was a lot of complex curves, a lot of detail that made it very interesting and really challenged us in the design process. We had to basically 3D model the whole bar in its individual pieces. We had to work out how those pieces would all come together. These days, modern terrazzo is generally created with a high-performance concrete, and then the aggregates are selected and added in. There's a lot of steps in between, but basically you've got to grind it, which brings life to the colour of the stone.
Walking through the space gives you a sense of theatre and experience. And then when you sit outside, you're sitting amongst one of the best backdrops in Sydney. So for us, I think it's achieved its goal. We've worked with many artisans, both local and abroad, but I believe Concreative understood the brief, understood the deliverable, the texture, the context, and the installation for me was the big key element that they got right. And I would recommend them to anybody.
Working across 3 projects at the same time was exciting. There was a lot of energy, a lot of buzz going on. The guys were really excited about the work we were doing because it was really challenging, but it was really beautiful. I hope that people can see how much more beautiful concrete can be than just the plain grey slabs that we're used to.